BookTube, it's Kim at K. Becker's Books. I'm coming to you today with the Amplify Voices tag. This tag was originally developed by Jenny Johnston, and I will link her channel below. I was tagged by Brian at Bookish, so thank you, Brian, for the tag. This was developed in order to inspire white booktubers to delve more into and explore more heavily Black authors and their work. So there are 5 tasks that go with the tag. It's a little bit different than prompts, so I'm going to read the 5 and then I'm going to go through and give you my thoughts. Number 1, select an essay, poem, novel, excerpt, or speech by a person of color or from a marginalized voice. Number 2, tell us about the author or authors. Number 3, tell us why you chose this piece. Number 4, read the piece. And number 5, tag some white booktubers. It was very easy for me to grow up without exposure to people of color. I grew up in a combination of New England and Ohio in white suburbs. I don't remember learning about African American history in school. I don't remember being taught very many details about the Civil War. I basically remember learning how Abraham Lincoln was slaves' savior, and that's pretty much as far as it went. I don't remember learning very much about the 60s and civil rights struggles and Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. I don't remember ever learning about those people in school. And if I did, it was a mention, a footnote to history. It wasn't until I left high school, after learning about most of my American history, most history was about old dead white men and how they founded the country, how they developed it, what they did in order to further the interests of white America. And of course it was not put to us that way while we were in school. It wasn't until I left high school, went to college, and started to take different classes, whether they were required electives or not, where I was exposed to some real aspects of what history really was. And I was moved to explore on my own, what did I not learn? And I don't say any of this to justify my ignorance. It's an admittance of me remaining oblivious, whether there was some level that was purposeful or not. When I was in college, because I am a woman and a feminist, I was mostly geared towards seeking out women's studies courses and learning more about my feminism and what I believed. It didn't occur to me to look into the experiences of women of color. It didn't occur to me that those experiences would be any different than my own. I want to learn more about the systems in place in my country that perpetuate racial stereotyping, that perpetuate racial abuse, and honestly, that perpetuate police violence and violence against people of color from all different sources. So if you're a Black booktuber, you do not need to perform this tag. This is for you, hopefully, to be elevated and to know that there are those of us, white people and white booktubers, who hear you and who care, who want to move forward, taking action and learning more and knowing more, and admitting to our own latent racism and our own latent laziness, our own latent naivete or lack of exposure that up until this point, as a middle-aged white woman, I had agency to change. And quite honestly, I probably didn't take much action. I would always have claimed I'm not a racist. But am I? Is there something in my core that finds no reason to learn more? Was there something up until this point that led me to sit back and not take any more action, to sit back and not pick up something that could teach me? I chose to talk about an author of color who is also a disabled author and also an LGBTQ author. Their name is Rivers Solomon, and they wrote a novella that I read in February for Black History Month called The Deep. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about River Solomon first. River Solomon is a non-binary author that goes by they and them. So Solomon wrote a novella called The Deep. It was a Hugo Award nominated novel, but it also came from a song created by the group Clipping, a Daveed Diggs rap group. Solomon wrote the novella based on the song. And it's a novella. It's called The Deep because it talks about an underwater society which came from during the transatlantic slave trade. There were instances of pregnant slaves thrown overboard because the slave owners, the ship's captains, did not want to devote any more resources to pregnant slaves and their impending births, their impending babies. So they often just threw them overboard as trash to get rid of them. Solomon writes the story of those babies when they're born underwater, whether their mothers were dead or alive at that point, because many of them were thrown over alive. If the baby is born underwater, would they have any reason to learn how to breathe on land? And it moves on, the story moves on to talk about how they lived, they survived, and began to form this, almost this utopian society. The catch in the whole system is that they have one of their inhabitants who is labeled as the historian. Because of the memories of slavery and the beginning of this society is so traumatic, all of the memories of the past are wiped out from most of the inhabitants, except for one who is labeled the historian. And it is the job of the historian during an annual ceremonial event to bring up all of the memories, the traumatic memories of the past, to remind the inhabitants of what happened to them, who they were descended from, how they were descended. And they were able to hear the traumatic memories and absorb them, and they became distraught. And it was a community-wide event. Because of the traumatic burden on the historian, it became a question of, would that historian survive to the next ceremony, having to deal with that trauma year-round? When the memories were recited to the rest of the community, the other inhabitants only could remember those traumas for a short length of time, usually less than a week. And then those memories were gone for them, but the historian held them and could not escape them. Now, why did I pick this? Why did I pick this passage to read? And I'm just going to read a short passage from the novella. Why did I pick this? Because like I said earlier, I was always so uneducated and naive. The Civil War was taught in schools, and I learned about Abraham Lincoln, and clearly I learned how horrific slavery was. But I did not learn any details. I did not realize what humanity was capable of perpetrating against other humans. And I have since watched other things and read other things and taken classes where I receive a much more thorough and honest and transparent historical record. Once I started to explore more, I started to become much more fascinated about getting facts. And so this particular novella was fascinating to me because of its fantasy and science fiction and fabulous and speculative nature. I am really a big fan of that. Okay, so I'm hoping I gave you enough of a background of the role of the historian and the ceremony, the annual ceremony that this community held. What I'm going to read is from the main character, whose name is Yetu, and she is the designated historian. She's speaking about, these are her thoughts, and these are the things that she's ruminating over, what she's imparting to the rest of her community. How disorienting it is to go most of your life wondering about a thing, only to happen upon the answer, and it is a horror. We know we shared kinship with the surface dwellers, For what else could explain our similarities, our ability to speak their language, our memory of the face so like Waj's during our infancy, floating still in the water? But the full truth is not as we imagined it. We lurk near the surfaces, hoping to find more Zodi Aleu. We listen to the talk and chatter of two legs on their massive ships. There are surface dwellers in the bottoms of these ships whose language we understand, whose words are the same ones Waj had used. They are suffering and scared. They have been robbed from their homes, stolen from their families. Their lives are no longer their own. They belong to the two legs on the decks of the ships. We are descendants of the people not on the top of the ship but on the bottom, thrown overboard, deemed too much of a drain of resources to stay on the journey to their destination. We know this because we see it. One day we are swimming but a few feet down from the surface in pleasantly cool waters, when there's a plop from above, a struggle causing the water to stir, and then a sinking. The surface dweller is in our arms, heart still beating, but we are too far from any land for us to think of dragging it to an island. It is unconscious and its belly is round with child. We bring it to the surface so it might breathe, but it never comes to. Underfed and malnourished, this is no surprise. We wonder how close it was to death already before whatever devil who captained that ship abandoned it to the seas. The two legs dies in our arms, but not moments later its body starts moving, taking over by a spirit or some other thing of the next world. Afraid, we let go. We don't wish to intervene with the dead. We watch from a distance, feel its convulsions in the water against our skin. Its eyes are closed. It is dead, isn't it? Yet it moves us. Yet it moves as if something is inside of it, using its body as a vessel. As we see the two legs' belly move and bend, something inside of it indenting the flesh, we understand its baby is trying to get born. The poor thing is trapped inside and we want to help, but how? How can the body even push? We worry for the two legs' pup and wonder if we should claw open the two legs' belly. We can save the child in a way we couldn't save the parent. We bring our teeth toward the belly of the dead, but we cannot bring ourselves to desecrate the flesh in this way. The fat, round belly gives under our touch as we lay our cheek against it. We can hear the two legs' baby inside. Come out, we sing. The world is ready for you, and you are ready for the world. It's the birthday song we Zodi Alehu sing for our little ones, and there's a chance that something in our voice will reach the two legs' pup, too. My body is preparing milk for you, we sing. You are hungry, come into this world so you might eat. We look for the place where the baby is to come out, the ashti, the tunnel. There's a round button on its belly that looks promising, that we feel with our front fins, and we wonder if we have to nudge it to open. We press and press, but it does not yield. Then the surface dweller's legs begin to splay apart, and we come under it. We see it, the head. Our eyes widen, struck. It is not a two legs head. There are fins at the center of its back, on its sides, and at its front, hairless, and darker than any land creature. It is Zodi Alehu. It is Zodi Alehu. What magic had intervened to transform the pup in the womb? Was it the ocean itself, the progenitor of all life? Did the Zodi Alehu have a god after all? Come, we sing, come. We have been preparing for you. We have feasted so you will be strong. The pup is coming, head, shoulders. Then we grab hold and pull it out into our embrace. This close to the surface we see its features so clear. Black eyes, brown, nearly black skin, beautiful dark scales. We sing to it to rejoice, overtaken. We have never seen a Zodi Alehu this new, this small, this fragile. How many who'd been just like this were swallowed whole? Precious pup, we say. We cannot think about its origins. We cannot think of what sickness plagues surface life affairs, that they throw living creatures to the sea to die alone. We must not think of the surface dwellers and two legs at all. And I chose that because of my own naivete regarding our American history. I also want to link how our history of slavery and civil rights violations against Black people led into the development of the police, that led into the systematic racism that is perpetrated against Black people, the attitudes and racism perpetrated against Black men in particular the opinions, the attitudes, the information that people think as fact about Black stereotypes. I need to explore more and learn more. I need to develop my knowledge and explore my own attitudes and my own latent racism, because as white people, we have to admit to it. We have to admit to the thoughts, the stereotypes, the ignorance. So that's what I hope to continue to do in my life. The next task in the tag is to tag some white booktubers. I've said this before, I am so new that I don't know a bunch off the top of my head, but I would love to hear the thoughts of other booktubers besides American booktubers, so I'll tag Sean the Book Maniac. I would love to tag Gemma from Read a Book Gem, Heidi at My Reading Life, she may have already been tagged. I know that Doris from Aldi Books has already completed the tag and her video is up. I would love to hear the thoughts of Greg from Supposedly Fun, Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse, and like I said, a lot of these booktubers may have already posted videos or plan to, so if I've repeated the call to tag, I apologize. So this is open to any co-booktubers who are white, and let's continue to amplify Black voices, because Black lives matter. It's just truth. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon in the next video. Have a good day. Bye.